Hello, my name is Gustavo, and this is my game called Last Stand Zombie Outbreak. So, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. This is basically the gist of it. The genre would be top down 2D zombie survival shooter. I developed it for PC, and the core gameplay loop would be survive waves of zombies, shoot, reload, and then keep trying to survive. Um, The session then currently is 5 minutes. The objective is for the player to try to survive 5 minutes, and if he does, then he wins. There's a countdown timer, and when it reaches zero, you win. However, I have thought about implementing a different game mode where it's unlimited time and survive as long as you can, but that would be for a later implementation. The gameplay would be the key features would be top-down movement and twin stick style aiming. I will talk a little bit more about it later. Infinite wave-based enemy system, where enemies just keep spawning. Reload mechanic and ammo tracking. And then visual feedback would be screen shake and muscle flash. And dynamic zombie pathfinding using A-star system. Then for the player goals and mechanics, so the objective is to survive for as many waves as possible. Uh, Currently 5 minutes, as I said, but for a future implementation would be just unlimited, survive as long as you can. And then the mechanics currently in the game are shooting and aiming with the mouse, and then movement with WASD, and then reloading with the R key, and the enemy pathfinding, of course, as I said, using a star system. Then the design evolution, I'm just gonna talk about the big changes I made throughout the development. So it would be the fixed player aim and bullet direction. So at the beginning, the player aim and bullet didn't work correctly. Like the player would maybe be aiming at the mouse, but the character would be like looking sideways, and when the player shot at the mouse, where the mouse was aiming, I mean, the bullet would go sideways too. So I fixed that so that the player is now currently looking at the mouse direction, and the bullet goes in that direction as well, and they don't go sideways. I adjusted the rendering layers for proper visibility since there was this error where the enemies they may be spawned underneath the ground, so you couldn't see them and they couldn't move and stuff like that. So I fixed that with the layers. Now the enemies spawn correctly above the ground, and they are visible and they can move freely. And then I added the full screen toggle and resolution settings so the player have more accessibility and they can choose whether to play on full screen or not and adjust the resolution to their PC's resolution to their monitor. I added more game feel details like muzzle flash and player hit VFX and also music and sound effects. Muzzle flash for when the player shoots, of course, and then the player hit VFX. I mean, when the player gets hit, the screen goes a little red for like a second or something. And then music in the background and the menus and sound effects for when the player shoots. The intended aesthetic of the game was tense atmosphere with dark and moody visuals, cartoony sprites with fast-paced action, visual feedback enhanced game feel, sound design immersion. So basically, the tense atmosphere with dark and moody visuals, I meant that with the just trying to give a dark and moody like atmosphere to the game. The main menu and the menus in general in the game have like this dark vibe with the music and the color of the UI. And then the cartoony sprites, I just thought about how the sprites I use for both enemies and player look kind of cartoony, since it's a top-down view. And then I just thought how the visual feedback, like when the player gets hit and stuff like that, really adds to the game feel, as well as the sounds. For future improvements, I have thought about adding more enemy types or boss waves, upgrading weapons, or adding new weapons altogether. New maps, of course. And I've thought about this perk system where it would be more of like a roguelite game where every certain amount of time or amount of kills, the player gets to choose between one of two perks and adds it to its inventory. New game modes, of course, like I said, unlimited game mode or something like that. Port for mobile and other platforms. I think this game would be a real good hit on mobiles. That's why I thought about mobile first and foremost. But other platforms would be good too. That's why I thought about adding controller support as well. And then I gotta give credit to the people that I that helped me with assets. I got some assets from from the Unity Asset Store and from Pixabay, both for audio and for for the sprites. And then thank you very much. Currently, the game is on GitHub, and I'm planning on adding it to Steam or some other platform so it's easier to access it. Thank you.